Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 14 of the Whitey and Wils Sports Show. Today is Monday, December 13th, 2021. Only a few more Mondays left in that year, but we're recording this on the morning of December 13th. No guests today, but we've got plenty to talk about. Lots of good basketball stuff to mention from the area for this week, and also some exciting news for local basketball fans. We're going to be talking about the recently released pairings for the Effingham-Teutopolis Christmas Classic. That's something that Mike has some pretty good inside information on, so he'll be able to give us as much insight as he cares to share about how those came to be. We can talk about that a little bit.
We probably have a scoop on the actual printed brackets. There's been a few local media that have been given the first round games, but we are scooping. We have the total. We can hold up the pretty brackets, but you can't see. I just hold that up. It could be anything.
Well, I mean, if you want, I've got it downloaded. I can share my screen, and we can give the people a look.
That'd be awesome. You're the fact checker and the IT department.
Yeah, when we get to that point in the show, we'll do that. Let's do something that we should do every week, which is, first of all, tell people at the top of the show what we're going to be talking about, and mostly give them a little tip that we will be doing an Attaboy of the week this week. I think we talked about it a little bit. We've got two people that we wanted to mention, and we also know that at some point there's going to be a kind of a lull in the basketball schedule around the holidays. Of course, you have the holiday tournaments, but then usually people slow down a little bit before or after. So we kind of thought, we've got two people we kind of had a tough time deciding between. So we're gonna make that work this week and name two. So hang on, we're gonna always close the show with that, I think, just to get people to stick with us a little bit. But then also wanted to bring up at the top of the show a couple of things that got by us. Last week, we just in passing sort of mentioned Lincoln being on its way out of the Apollo Conference, and that is true. But we were off by a year. We had thought that was going to be after this season. Well, that is actually they've got one more year before they head back to the Central State 8. So
the good thing about us making mistakes, Whitey, is when we know people are listening because they correct us.
That was exactly what I told Dave Woltman whenever he messaged us about that. He said 23-24 is the school year that they're actually going back to the Central State 8. And I said, Dave, at least I know that you were watching. And I'm going to say that Dave was not just watching because Uwe was on the show last week. I'm sure he's a loyal. I'm sure he's a loyal viewer. But I will say that Uwe and your dad and Greg Sapp, the episode we did with the both of them, currently tied for number of views on our channel. Easily the top two on our channel. So
I could probably call a couple of my aunts and uncles, and they could watch Dad's and Greg's, and he could take the lead. But
that's they both steadily rise as the weeks go by. So
I think a lot of that has to do when people piques their interest. Oh, I want to see this one. Oh, yeah. Well, and then they start catching others, and they catch up, and they're like, oh, how have I been functioning without listening to the Whitey and Wils podcast once a week?
Their lives, they found a hole in their lives they didn't even know existed. So
we make people, as you can see also, Whitey, I'm on the remote again today. I have my halo behind my head,
I think
it's funny how my internet doesn't like to work in the morning, and that makes me, not happy.
I will say that during peak usage times, depending on who your provider is, and we don't have to get into that, but let's just say that when I lived in Effingham, I went round and round with the same company you did. So Anyway, one other thing I wanted to bring up before we got too far down the show. Laurie Thompson was a guest on our program right before the season started. Was nice enough to give us a preview of the T-Town girls basketball season. She's at this point, longtime coach at T-Town. We can say that now. And as evidenced by the fact that she won her 400th game very early in the season. I believe it was their third win of the year. She got to the 400 mark, and that passed us by. We didn't mention it, but we really we shouldn't let that go by, because that's quite an accomplishment. That's a number that many coaches just don't get to. And I know that Laurie will deflect and say, you can't win 400 games without good kids. And that's 100% true. But, it still is a reflection on a very impressive coaching career. And I wanted to make sure that we didn't miss out on acknowledging that. It's very cool that she was able to get there, and those wins are just going to keep stacking up as long as Laurie's at the helm of that program. So that's what I wanted to get out of the way and make sure that we didn't forget again. So,
and we needed, and that's again, that's an error on our part. So, and that's 400, I'm going to coach, and getting to 100 is a struggle. And then you start, now I got to do this all over again. It shows you two things. Someone's been coaching a while, and they've also been very successful at what they do.
Right. I mean,
to get to those numbers.
And those are both things longevity comes from success a lot of times, because coaches don't generally, they can't stick at a school if the wins aren't there. I mean, I know that that's not everything that high school basketball is about, but most of the time, if the success, if some moderate level of success isn't following you, then it's going to get tougher to just hang on to the position, or have the interest personally to stick with the job also. But also, yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of games to win, because I mean, a good 20 wins is a good season. Okay. Like 20 wins is a great season, actually. And
it's a great benchmark. I think as a coach, you hold yourself accountable. I don't want to say hold yourself accountable. You have your own inner goals, and 20 is the number, because 20 wins is in people's eyes is a lot more than one more win than 19 wins.
Yeah. And the point I'm trying to get to there is that it takes, if you were to average 20 wins a season, so average a great season every year, it would still take you 20 years to get to 400. Well, we both know that Laurie she hasn't been the head coach for 20 years. Off the top of my head, 12 or 13 feels right. I could do some prep, and actually know this off the top of my head, but the number is not 20. I'm looking it up right now. So let me kill just a little bit of time here and look up Laurie's number. Scrolling. Yeah, she's more than I thought. 15. This is her 16th full season, and then she had
that part year.
Yeah, partial year when she took over for Dennis. But still, the fact of the matter is that's more like 25
wins a season with my basic math skills.
Yeah, so she's clearly a great accomplishment. And again, Laurie would not want if you brought it up to her in person, she would not really want to talk about it. I've known her long enough to know that.
So that's why we're doing it. She would deflect.
Maybe maybe it's better that we forgot to bring it up when we had her on, because if we said it to her, she would have just moved on quickly. And
she'd have brushed it off.
This way we get to focus on a little bit more. So congratulations to Laurie. Great accomplishment. We'll be talking about 500 before you know it, as long as
I know how she does that brush off, because if I pop in her office and want to talk about something with the boys golf team, I've figured out how she brushes things off, or if I have to, hey, I need to talk to you about something about the Christmas tournament. So I personally know that Laurie Thompson brush off, but that's awesome because to get 400 wins, you've got to be in your 70s usually, and Laurie's not in her 70s.
No.
So that's good.
She's, I mean, I don't pretend to have any idea what Laurie's career goals are or how long she wants to have the reins, but I think she could stack up a pretty big number by the time it's all said and done if that's what she wants to do. So anyway, we can move on now. And you know, not that we don't have extensive pre-production meetings before we get started here, but I do want to put you on the spot a little bit and say, do we want to talk Christmas tournament first? Do we want to talk Christmas tournament first, or do we want to go ahead and kind of
right? Let's do our little recap,
yes,
and then we'll go dive head first into Christmas tournament.
I think that's a great idea. I've got my spreadsheets all in front of me as far as how some of these how the week went, and I'll pull those up. Let's start with some girls basketball. I think the primo game of the week in the National Trail Conference girls side of things was Monday night. St. Anthony and Altamont hooked up, and there's a couple of things that stand out about this before you even get into point totals for any individual players. You see that the score was 86-70 in favor of St. Anthony. Now, first of all, the game was closer than that for most of the way, but that's a ton of points. I mean, 156 points between the two schools, just an offensive outburst that you don't see very often in the high school scene, girls or boys basketball anymore. It's just not the way the game is played anymore. Possessions are longer. Scoring skills maybe not quite what they were, but defense also more physical than. I mean, defense just gets more and more physical every year, it seems like.
Well, and Whitey, as a coach, when I coached, that's a score that I liked. I wanted as many possessions as we could get. And when you talk about that's a score you don't see, you see more scores in the 40s today than anything. And we talked about this actually at our seating meeting last night. We had a discussion with the guys on the seating committee through text. I still say that a big part of the decline in scoring is the 3-point line. I really do.
It does become, some kids just become focused on staying back there and getting that shot. And it's not just kids. I mean, kids typically play the way they're coached, right? Like it's, so that's, I think that's a fair point. I can't speak from a lot of personal experience on that one, because as long as I've been alive, or at least able to watch basketball and understand what's going on, 3-point line has been there. But
it's a great tool. It's an exciting tool. I love it. I embraced it as a coach. However, I think you see, I hate when you have kids shooting around in the gym, little kids come out and get a ball, maybe 4th, 5th, and 6th graders in a gym. You just got balls out there, maybe after practice, and you watch, they all just drift out to that circle and they're bringing it down to their hip and chucking. And no,
you want to see those kids get under the basket and do a Mike and drill, right? That's what you want.
Oh yeah. Mike and drill, the old D Brown 2-foot drill. Yeah.
That's what you want to see. So that's, again, my Altamont was missing a player. Peyton Osteen didn't play in that game. Could have made it a little more interesting, but who they weren't missing was Grace Nelson. She scored 50 points in that game, Mike.
A lot.
It's a few. Even with the gaudy numbers that she's putting up this year, 50 certainly raised her average. She's up to 32.7 points a game this season. That's actually, I don't have their game Saturday. They played Tri-County and got beat by Tri-County on Saturday, which is a state ranked, Associated Press ranked number 2 apparently in the Class 1A poll. So they lost by 12 in that game. She scored 25, 27, something like that in that game. But she's averaging well over 30 points a game. Her low game of the season is 22. Obviously having a great year and really, really putting that Altamont club on her back. not that they don't have other good players, but when you see 30 some points a game, well, I don't know what else you can. I don't think that it's any insult to anybody to say that you're kind of pushing your team along, right? That's just one of those things. It's evident by the numbers.
It is. And the time I saw him play, first time I'd seen her play, I was doing that game at Dietrich with Matt. And just when they came out, before real official pregame warm-ups, when they're dressed, kind of, first couple of kids dressed out there shooting around. I said, Matt, she's number X. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the way she carried herself out there, you could tell. And, it's a thing where she's not a one-dimensional player. I wish, and I say I wish, I think a thing that really hurts Altamont is their lack of size.
Yeah, I haven't seen Altamont in person yet, but my understanding is that it's basically a 5-guard look. Like they play a 5-out style because that's just who they have. In high school, you can't. Some things are just out of your control, and that's one.
Can't coach height. It's just it's there.
And so they're making do. They're winning some games, but I think that when you look at how St. Anthony is built, they've got a little more size to them. First of all, Riley Guy scored 30 points in that game. A former Attaboy winner on this very program. She's averaging 18.8 points a game after she also put up 26 against Cowden Herrick Beecher City later in the week. We'll get to that in a second. But they got 24 points out of Lucy Fearday and 10 points out of Abby Hatton. And those are two kids that bring you a lot of they can play under the basket. You know what I'm saying? They're post players, they're athletic, they can also run the floor. But when it comes right down to it, they are kids who can exploit a size advantage. And I think that's without having seen that game in person, but having talked to people who were there and just knowing what I know about the makeup of their rosters, I can kind of see where Lucy would have a big game in that matchup, because I don't think there's very many girls in the conference that can physically match up to Lucy. She's got the height, but also the athleticism and the quickness.
Well, she can strike a lot of them out. So
yes, and I'm not just saying that because she gives my daughter pitching lessons either.
Oh no.
But it doesn't hurt. I know she's a good kid, so I like to say nice things about her. But the NTC, looking at some other stuff there. Again, St. Anthony and Cowden Herrick Beecher City played Thursday night, and CHBC got them by 51-50. And that means that CHBC is still undefeated on the year. They are 9-0. They're the last NTC girls team to have a perfect record overall. Neoga is still undefeated in the conference. They're 3-0. They got a win over South Central Monday night. They played Oblong, Palestine, Hudsonville on Thursday. So that was their only conference game. But CHBC kind of putting itself in the catbird seat in the conference with a win over St. Anthony, who you would have to figure is one of the tougher teams they're going to face this year. So you're starting to see that, Neoga, CHBC, St. Anthony, Altamont, that's sort of the top tier of the conference. It's starting to shake out a little bit, I think. And, Dietrich, South Central, good enough to give people fits also, but that's sort of where the NTC girls are at.
The Dietrich team, I kind of call them a sleeper. I saw some things that night I did the game on the radio that I think, they've got potential to be, shoot the ball better than they did.
Yeah, like I said, capable of beating teams. Don't get me wrong. Capable of giving people a real hard time or winning some games that they quote unquote shouldn't win. I think that's kind of where they're getting to be now. They've only got one game this week, and that's a non-conference game. They've got Cumberland coming in on Thursday. That'll be an interesting matchup.
That'll be a good ball game.
Yeah. Looking at upcoming stuff. Altamont, North Clay tonight. St. Anthony's got T-Town tonight, though. St. Anthony goes to T-Town, And I think that's going to be a good game and a lot better game than it has been in recent years. St. Anthony's up. T-Town's always good. Greg and Matt are going to have that one on the radio tonight, and they should have some fun with that ball game.
There'll be some good athletes on the floor for that one.
Okay, let's move on to the Apollo girls side of things, mostly so we can talk about Effingham. Effingham got into its, really jumped headfirst into the conference work this week, having a couple of tough opponents in Matt Toon and Muhammad, and came up on the losing side of both of those games by, pretty one-sided margin in both of those games. So Effingham came into the week undefeated, and they come out of it 7-2 overall, 1-2 in the Apollo standings. Matt Toon got them 59-35, and Muhammad 58-36. So I think this just kind of goes to show, as much as anything, that the top of the Apollo Conference is stacked. There's not a lot of easy games in that league right now. Lincoln sits at 1-1 in the conference standings, but they're 8-2 overall. Muhammad,
who was Lincoln's lost to in the conference?
Matt Toon.
Matt Toon, that's right.
Yeah. Again, Muhammad hasn't lost yet. They're 10-0. I'm double checking on Effingham's. Double checking on Effingham's conference record just to make sure I've got that right. But yeah, I believe 1-2 is correct. They've lost Matt Toon and Muhammad. They got the win over. Taylorville last week. So yeah, the good news for Effingham, as far as the conference goes, is they've got Charleston this week. That's actually Tuesday night. Charleston's down. Well, they haven't won a game yet, and their scores have, unfortunately for them, been pretty lopsided. So it's a good chance for the Lady Hearts to sort of get back, get back on their feet a little bit after a tough week of conference play. You can't take anything for granted, of course, but it's one you feel like you should win. And then they've got St. Anthony, if I've got that right, Thursday night. Yeah, so St. Anthony's got an interesting week of non-conference games.
Yeah.
They've got T-Town tonight. They've got Effingham Thursday. And again, that's a game that in the past 3 years, St. Anthony just hasn't, they haven't been in a place where they could win those games. But I think that that's going to be another interesting matchup Thursday night. So lots of good county stuff going on this week.
Yeah, and it is, and it's to play both schools in the same week. Got to be tough because you get so up for those two contests. You really do.
Yeah, there's a lot of emotions flying around, I would have to think. I mean, you always know people that play for those other teams. You probably play together in some
sport. Yeah.
So like there's a lot to those matchups. Certainly not as a coach where I would it would be tough, I think, to keep everybody where they need to be for those two matchups in the week. So that's certainly a fair point. One other girl, let's go T-Town's girls. They had a couple games last week. They lost in overtime to Pana, 39-38. Low scoring game there. Pana, that's always a tough. I say, if they're on T-Town's schedule, it's a good program, and Pana certainly fits into that. And then they also played St. Joseph Ogden Thursday night and got a 48-35 win. So the T-Town girls are 5-2 on the season with a win and a loss there, continuing to do good work. And they've got an interesting week this week. Again, St. Anthony Monday night, and then they go to Olney Thursday night. I'm just looking at the Olney girls, 5-3 so far on the year. So they've got a pretty good team. They got thumped by Paris Thursday night. 67-16 was the score there. But I think the Paris girls are just a juggernaut. They beat by as far as I can tell, a pretty good Marshall team, 63-28 that same week. And they beat Newton. Now Newton's girls are down a little bit, but boy, they beat Newton by 52 points. So they're creaming people. So don't read too
Paris
much.
and T-Town girls played just after Christmas, or I think they're still on the schedule, aren't they?
We can look into that a little bit.
No, we'll have our producer check into that.
Yeah, our producer in the background is going to be checking into that while we continue to talk. We can touch back on that, but Paris is real good. So only got thumped by them, but I wouldn't read too much into that as far as trying to prognosticate that matchup with T-Town. Seems like it ought to be a pretty good game. So the T-Town girls have an interesting week ahead of them. On the boys' side, I'll go in the same order I did with the girls. We'll start with the NTC. The St. Anthony boys, they had a week where they played a couple of conference games that I think could trip you up. It kind of lets you, they end up winning both of them pretty comfortably, but I think that you could see where either one of those teams could have given them more trouble than they did, and you might not feel as good about as a coach or player might not feel as good about things as you probably do now. If those games had gone a little differently or been a little closer. But St. Anthony beat Cowdenherrick Beecher City 87-55 on Tuesday night last week. And then they turn around and beat St. Elmo Brownstown by 26, 68-42. So a couple of things there that you like, or that they're scoring a bunch of points, right? Like
right. And and we talked about, going in, if Cody's group, if they want to be top 2, top 3, in that conversation in the conference, games they had to win. And I think that's a good test. So it's games they win and games they don't win by 6. Yeah. So that's good. The big matchup with Altamont, I know, is very late in the year.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming, it's just good. And I don't mean it in a bad way. Hey, games you're supposed to win, but hey, if we're going to be a factor in the title chase in the NTC, these are games you have to win.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't lose those games and still win the conference championship. I
don't
think.
No.
So that's a fair point. A couple of things for St. Anthony. Croy is coming on. He came on hot in those games, 21 and 26 points. So they've needed him they've needed Craig Croy to come up with some big games, and he's done it. He had a big game, a couple of pretty good games early on in the Thanksgiving tournament, and he's been their leading scorer, but kind of lately the numbers were not like eye-popping or anything, but he's back on his game. And another thing that I want to point out is that you look at you look at St. Elmo Brownstown, you look at CHBC, the kids that normally are scoring a bunch of points for those teams were limited somewhat. Like that shows me that the Bulldogs are playing some pretty good defense too, which has always been a thing they do well in this conference, is kind of give teams fits on that end of the floor as well and wear them down at the end of the game. And I think if you look at the line scores for both of those contests, you can see that they just pull away late, and that's because they're wearing you down. And that's what St. Anthony does in the NTC. So
yeah, and the other thing is more athletes on the floor. Many times you'll see kids score a lot of points. Not a lot of options guarding them. Maybe one kid could guard them on an opponent. Maybe they get in foul trouble, but St. Anthony's got some athletes. I mean, they've got some length, and they've got some kids who can guard, obviously. And yeah, I think generally, as a coach coming into games, sometimes you see a school and you say, oh, Dustin White scoring 26 points a game. Okay, we're not going to let that happen. And they become a focal point. And then, many times you hold them down, maybe because you don't have to have so much emphasis on options 4 and 5 or 3, 4 and 5. So you've got a little more opportunity to help and do some things. I relate this back, and he and I tell this, we laugh about it every time. When Colton Boer was a freshman, he comes into St. Anthony and kind of lit us up in the first half. I knew who he was. I knew he was a pretty good player. Didn't put as much emphasis on him defensively as we probably should have in the first half. And he scored a lot of points in the first half, probably 18 points, something like that, 16 points. And, okay, Jordan Kerner, fix this. And then Colton always says, Coach, that second half, I maybe scored 2 or 3 points. I said, well, Colton, we got tired of watching you. It's a lot of things. It's just like kids that score a lot of points their junior year. Wow, Dustin White's 19 points a game as a junior. He's a second leading scorer. He's going to have a monster senior year, and then they don't. Well, you're now option 1 on the to be guarded. A lot of people, when you're option 2 or option 3, can put up a lot of points, especially on teams that score a lot of points. But when suddenly you're option 1, things become different, and you'll see kids fall off their senior year a lot of times because of that.
Yeah, sometimes because the people who were the number 1 option obviously have graduated. And so what you see a big senior class come through, those are the ones where or a class that's just full of athletes. Those are the ones that you figure they could really make some noise as they get older, because they don't have to keep adjusting to changing roles, right? Like they can kind of play together and keep pushing forward. So that's a good point. Moving on to Effingham and the Apollo. Effingham had it was a tough week for Effingham on the boys' side of things as well. They had 3 games, 2 in conference play, a non-conference game on Saturday. They went to Mattoon and lost by 40 points, 64-24. A little better luck at Mahomet on Friday. A little better game. Mahomet beat them 46-35, and that's a Mahomet team that played Mattoon to 2 points. So, they're no reason to doubt their ability. And then Saturday, Centralia gets you 42-29. So
that in Saturday's game was in a shootout. Is that correct?
That was in a shootout. Yes, that wasn't at Centralia. That was I'm blanking on where the shootout was at.
Yeah, it was a shootout. I didn't see where it was. I mean, the biggest thing I see with Effingham right now is scoring.
Yeah.
And I've talked to some folks. I haven't seen them since Thanksgiving. I've talked to some folks who've seen them all those games. And it's just like, Mike, we're having trouble scoring.
Yeah.
And it's, Mattoon beats you 54-40 at Thanksgiving and turns around and beat you 64-24 like 10 days later.
I was at that game, and by the way, that shootout was the Terry Tote shootout in Nokomis, and that's Terry Tote's a longtime radio guy. I know that anytime I go over that way with Greg, and Greg runs into him, they went to school together. So yeah, the Terry Tote shootout in Nokomis. But I was at the Mattoon game in Mattoon Tuesday night. Mattoon defended so well in that game for starters. They just made Effingham's life miserable. And they came out playing looked to me like a 2-3 zone. I'm bad at diagnosing.
Mattoon did?
Yeah, I'm bad at diagnosing zones, but that's pretty simple. That's a pretty simple one to be able to see. They just put their big 6'8" kid in the middle but still guarded well on the outside. Like you would think, okay, they're playing a zone, so Effingham's going to be able to get some open looks from outside. Well, that wasn't the case because they closed out so well. They just got after it. I don't know what else to say. I mean, they They just played a really good basketball game on both ends of the floor. And Effingham, didn't have anywhere close to its best night. You could tell Obi was frustrated, was making some personnel changes late in the game, sitting some people down, trying to see if he could get a little different effort out of some other kids. But it was just one of those games that kind of gets away from you and spirals out of control. And at a certain point, there's nothing you can do to.
Well, and it gets to the point when you rely so heavily on how well you shoot the basketball in a game. Too many times teams aren't getting easy buckets. And Effingham's defense, I felt, was really, really good at Thanksgiving. And it sounds like they're still guarding hard and playing hard.
Yeah.
But at some point, you got to do things, especially when you're having trouble hitting shots. You've got to do things defensively to create easy buckets. You've got to find ways to bring about different types of pressure or do things differently. Because it's amazing when you start getting some easy buckets, pretty soon the basket gets a little bigger. And, they're going to have a night where they come out and shoot it well. And it's like, even when you're guarded, when you're facing a good defensive team, if it's a night all of a sudden you're just shooting well, even though most of your shots are contested or, you're having to work for them. If you get on a hot streak and that carries over, sometimes, that's good, but you got to find ways to get some easy buckets, because if you rely strictly on being able to shoot the 12 to 15 to 20 footer, there's nights they're not there. And it sounds like the Hearts have run into a couple of those nights.
Well, that was, and I mean, okay, and missing shots, when the team runs the floor as well as Matt Toon did that night, they were very good in transition. So you miss shots, it gives them a chance to get up the floor. And no matter how good you guard, no matter how well you guard in the half court, transition defense is another animal. But also turnovers were bad that night. Matt Toon forced 21 turnovers in that game, and that's not a number you're used to seeing right out of Effingham. So they were able to score a bunch, just run the floor really well. So, it's a tough week for Effingham. I don't know what else you can really say. They, as I look into what they've got coming up this week, they've got T-Town Tuesday night. They've got T-Town coming in, and then they've got Charleston coming in on Thursday, and they've got Lincoln coming in on Saturday. So, you got some home games there. You don't have to go on the road, at least, but those are Charleston's having a good year. Charleston is 6-2 overall. They're 3-0 in the conference. Lincoln is 6-1. They are 1-1 in conference play. They were supposed to play. Now we do have to, I'm not sure, because we do either Lincoln or Charleston. I'm guessing that one of those games, we don't have a lot of information yet, but Lincoln and Charleston were supposed to play Friday night. And
Lincoln's I think Lincoln's in lockdown.
Is it Lincoln? I didn't know if it was Lincoln or Charleston, but
trust me, when I see anybody in our Christmas tournament getting a game postponed, I am in a very sweatingly way text the coach.
Yeah.
And
that's got to be tough, because that'd be your worst nightmare, is to get to like the week before the Christmas tournament and all of a sudden some team has to go on lockdown. And yeah, that would keep me up at night. So I don't know if that game is not until Saturday. So I don't know what it seems like most of the teams are locking it down for a week at a time. I know when Taylorville had their issue earlier on, it seemed like they were playing again within a week. I don't know exactly when Lincoln's problems cropped up, but we can't write off that Saturday game yet, I don't think.
No, I think it depends on your county health department. I know that, for example, Oak Lawn's kids are in a 10-day freeze
Mhm.
I know Lincoln Ways had a kid sick. It wasn't enough. I think it's just one, and there was nobody else. Um, you know, so yeah, there's a lot of factors on how it's being treated. I think every county health department kind of does things a little differently. So yeah,
And I
it's
forgot,
definitely the 800-pound gorilla in the room.
800 might be light. Um, I also forgot to mention, so obviously Effingham a tough week. If they play all three of those games, no reason to believe obviously they've got T-Town Tuesday, they've got Charleston Thursday. Those are going to happen. Maybe Lincoln coming in on Saturday. Also on Saturday, I didn't get this one mentioned. Charleston's going to be at St. Anthony, so that's an interesting test for the Bulldogs.
Charleston's very, from what I am gathering from people, very, very much up and down, like to shoot it. So that'll be an interesting game. It's kind of funny, as we do our seedings, we got a lot of matchups of tournament teams right after we do the seedings. So it's like, oh, we seed team A ahead of team B, and then team B turns around and beats team A. Yeah.
Yeah. And in St. Anthony's got Newton on Tuesday night. Newton comes in, and Newton's having a good
7-1.
Yeah, Newton's having a good year. It's really the NTC teams, they've got a busy week because you look at South Central, St. Elmo Brownstown, CHPC, and Windsor Stew Straws. Well, they're all in the St. Elmo Holiday Tournament coming up. That's happening. That's happening this week. St. Elmo always does its tournament, a solid week before Christmas, so that they're not actually playing on the week of Christmas. North Clay is at the Wayne City tournament, which does the same thing. But Windsor Stew Straws had a good week. I really didn't mention them much. They got wins over Arcola and Shelbyville. You saw Altamont get a 14-point win Friday night over South Central in their first conference game. And South Central has had some pretty, they've been pretty competitive so far. So Windsor Stew Straws is 6-2 overall. They lost their only conference game, and I'm looking to see that was against Diederich. And Diederich is, they beat Cowdenhurst Beecher City by 36 points Friday night. So
I get to see. I guess I'm working with Matt Friday night doing the St. Anthony at Dietrich game. That should be a good ball game.
I'm looking forward to hearing about that one for sure.
You're just looking forward to listening to me and Matt. I know.
Well, yeah. Although I will be at the Neoga game that night. Arcola is at Neoga. My daughter is going to be doing some sort of a cheer camp thing at halftime.
That's the little kids do something, so the mom and dad got to come fill the gym. That's a good deal. Hey, doesn't Arcola have like a freshman who's supposedly really good?
Well, if they do, it wasn't good enough to keep Windsor Stew Straws from beating them by 25 points. That's all I can say.
I may be reading things. I thought somewhere maybe he's in junior high. I read somewhere where a kid's getting some looks by D1 schools. Kid.
But Windsor Stew Straws, they beat Shelbyville by 26. That's the second time they've beaten Shelbyville this year.
Yeah, I think they're down.
They're down, but all the same, Hatchets seem like they're going to figure into the conversation a little bit. Diederich, pretty good too. So there's still some, and I still say, we talked about this a little bit last week, but North Clay, they're 2-6 now, but the teams they played a lot of good competition. So I think they're gonna be a factor in the middle part of the conference. I really just think that the way you're seeing things shake out now, the 2 through 7 spots, or maybe 3 through 7, 4 through 7. What I'm saying is the middle of the conference is going to be a muddle. You're probably going to be getting your tiebreaker sheets out by the time the things are all said and done. So we kind of forgot to mention, what the NTC schools had coming up. So I wanted to shift back to that a little bit. We talked about what Effingham's got coming up. the Hearts are going to have to do some catch up work to get to. When you look at them getting an 0-2 start in the conference, Mount Zion's 0-2, but everybody else has got at least a win in the league standings. Lincoln and Taylorville 1-1, Mattoon's 2-1, Mahomet's 2-2, and Charleston's undefeated at 3-0. So that leaves T-Town's boys. They had a couple of games this week, and they won them both, but they were battles. They trailed Paris a lot of the way Tuesday night and ended up getting a 50-45 win. And then they were in a dogfight with Bloomington Central Catholic. Now, they won that game 57-51. That was homecoming night.
We were there watching because obviously Mrs. Wilson's a former homecoming queen. So really her goal is just to go for coronation, and then she's okay to leave. But I said, no, I want to watch this game. And I was very concerned when a young man came out with a shirt and tie and a boot on his foot.
Yeah, Brendan Nieberge didn't play in that game. They're not 100% sure how long that is going to be the case for him. I think that
from what I have heard, I think the chances of him being back for Christmas are pretty good. But again, I'm not talking to a doctor.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll have to see. But, Whitey, I saw that, and Bloomington Central Catholic's record isn't stellar, but they got kids who can play, and they're young. They've also, you look at who they've played. They played a pretty tough schedule. And I will be the first to admit I didn't have warm fuzzies going into that game, because I reverted back to, we've talked about it, when the way T-Town played against Breeze Central, and just kind of Brendan saved us and needed people to step up. And I was texting a member of our committee during the game, and I said, a couple guys are really going to have to step up and take things over for this team. And wow.
Yeah.
That was not the T-Town team I saw at Thanksgiving in any game.
No, Max Nieberge scores 19 points in that game, which is notable because at the time he was the fourth leading scorer for the team and hadn't scored more than 11 in any one game, and that was against Paris. Just the previous game, that was his first double-figure output. But the kid has a pretty big night.
How many did Brendan Nieberge score against Paris?
He only scored 5.
I wonder if he wasn't hampered a little bit in that game. I don't know that. I just remember seeing that he didn't score much in that game. So the thing about when you mentioned Max, probably the biggest thing I took away from that game was his on the floor, his leadership on the floor that game. He kind of took charge. He hit probably 6, 7 free throws in a row in the fourth quarter.
Yes, he had a
he said, "Give me the ball, come foul me, and then I'm going to go make 2 free throws."
Yeah, he may have. It may have actually been. It was either 6 or 8 free throws. I don't have my book in front of me, but he made everyone a shot there in the fourth quarter. And T-Town as a team shot the free throws well in the fourth quarter when they needed to.
That was the difference in the ball game.
Yeah, they never trailed in that game, but they had Central Catholic had times where they could have been put away, and they hit a big shot here or there to keep it interesting. And again,
that number 5, the sophomore,
Serta. Yeah, Serta, Cole Serta.
He's not bashful.
No, he's a confident player. He'll take about any shot. He'll take a 3-pointer from the way beyond the arc, which T-Town had a little trouble defending early on. Although I think you'll give a kid that shot most of the time. You can't.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it wasn't just a set shoot. He's catching it, checking the wind, letting it fly. He's doing step back threes from 22, 23 feet and burying them. I mean, there weren't many threes. I mean, he wasn't touching the rim. He just buried stuff. And you think, oh, that wasn't a good, oh, wow. So
it doesn't have to, it doesn't always have to be a good look to go in, right? But
that's true.
I got the feeling that those go in for him based on what I saw that night. But yeah, Max Nieberge stepped up when they needed him to step up, and Kate and Seamer, also comes to play. 15 points in that game. And
a couple things with Caleb Seamer that I really, as a coach, you get warm fuzzies. He would just bust his tail down the floor because the big kid from Catholic, he was a sophomore also.
Yeah, they only had.
He didn't want to run the floor as much as Caleb was wanting to run the floor, and Caleb would just take off, and this kid hated it, having to run that hard back. A lot of times big guys think, oh, now I can catch my breath and kind of almost walk back and jog. But Seamer put his head down and pushed himself up and down the floor.
Well, and he got some looks early in that game, got his back to the basket, posted the man up one-on-one, and made it look pretty easy, quite honestly. And that forced Bloomington Central Catholic to change its defensive game plan a little bit. It made them go. They went zone, and that sort of slowed him down a little bit. He and Max both kind of took a little while to make their adjustments, but then in the fourth quarter, when they needed to, they were both figuring into things. So,
and with T-Town's best shooter in street clothes, I might have played a lot more zone than I did. And I know Dylan Bremer hit some threes, and I think Ruhal hit one. One of the Altos hit one. But I still, I think, say you have to beat me from the perimeter now. Max made one, so I kind of surprised they played them as many minutes of man-to-man as they did.
Yeah, I think if they had tried to stick with their man defense for much longer in the first half, T-Town might have been able to put that game away. So it was a good adjustment. And again, that's a team that they had won a single game, and it was against Villa Grove, which I'm not 100% sure how they ended up playing Villa Grove, but they beat the pants off them and lost everyone else they played, but a lot of really good inter-city competition from what I understand. So, tough matchup for T-Town, but they get through. They get a couple of wins. They are, I'm looking there,
6-1.
6-1 on the season. So, yeah. And again, they've got Effingham Tuesday night, and that is an interesting matchup, especially without Brendan there. But
and don't be surprised if he plays, but don't be surprised if he's still in a boot.
Yeah, we don't know.
Right.
Coach Reeder was pretty non-committal to anything, as he should be in his post-game interview. So, okay, so there is the week that was and the week that will be in local prep basketball. I always think
now we get to talk about important things.
When we don't have a guest, I always think this is gonna be a nice short show, and we just talk too much, or we just have a lot to say. I don't know. Hey, but anyway.
Time of possession is getting ready to switch now.
So that before we get to the Attaboys, we're going to make you wait just a little bit longer. But we've got important business. The 2021 Effingham-Teutopolis Christmas Classic back on. Didn't get to have it last year, like so many things. But
sorely missed.
It's happening. So what I'm going to do here, Mike, I'm going to share my
screen. You're going to try your IT skills out here, aren't you?
I am. I'm going to share my screen, and then I'm going to let you talk. Well, I thought I was going to share.
I don't know that I've ever heard anyone say that before, Whitey. Well, as you're playing with that IT stuff,
yes.
Our seating was done last night, and we have a seating committee. Myself, Chris Craig, Mitch Custer, Jason Rundy, are kind of the seating committee, and it's kind of unique because we have such a diversity of teams and levels from 1A to 4A. I think that's what makes our tournament so unique. But when we lay teams out strictly based on their record, and I had the little cards, and here's, based on your records, pretty much, here's kind of how it looked. And you're like, there's a lot of things you got to take into consideration. Who do people play? And that's that's a big thing. I will say this, seeding wise, this is the third 16 teamer we've seeded, and we've seeded the others before this. Most difficult tournament we've seeded by a long shot. And we talked about it when we were done. I thought, man, just think if we still had a good cordless team in this mix. So very difficult to do. We do not publish. There it is, Whitey.
Yeah.
I got to move you and I off to the side now. We do not publish the seeds, okay? Because, a person would say, oh, well, I'm looking at this and Pleasant Plains or Lincoln Way is your number one seed because they're at the very top of the bracket. No. Well, Dixon and Effingham, one of them is your 2 seed. No, because, we have to move things around. Obviously, you got to get all your Effingham's got to be on the Effingham side, T-Town on the T-Town side. Then you've got, okay, we want Effingham and T-Town playing their last games on their sites. We don't affect the integrity of the tournament by the things we move around. We don't want a Mattoon Charleston first round matchup. We don't want an Effingham Mattoon, Effingham Charleston first, but yet all these factors we take into consideration when we put this together. We're not jerry rigging things to benefit local teams. I know of tournaments in the past that coaches strongly felt the way pairings were done, not really benefiting more than maybe 1 or 2 teams in the tournament. So with that said, we open on the Effingham side, and I'm going to use my sheet instead of what you've got up there. It's just a little easier. Well, maybe not. Let me see if I can. Yeah, I can't make it any bigger. And I do know there's a spelling error on there, so don't hold that against me. We've got that corrected in the new version that went out. But our first game at 3 o'clock at T-Town on day 1, that Tuesday will be Pleasant Plains and Lincoln Way East. Second game will be Champaign Centennial and St. Anthony. 6 o'clock game will be Newton and Charleston. And here's the one of the biggest things we struggled with once we had this all said and done. Newton and Charleston played December 21st. And we thought, wow, well, the way the seedings were set up, well, if we move one way or the other, it wouldn't work, because now you might start bringing in other Apollo teams as having to play each other, and we don't want that. And I know I've talked to Troy Bierman, Newton's coach, a little bit before and after, and he realizes, hey, I know we're going to, at some point in the tournament, be playing people who've already played. But, I know people are probably like, well, why couldn't those idiots have done this? Trust me, we looked real hard at trying to avoid that, and it is what it is. I will say this, that's going to be an awesome game.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that
it's an awesome game.
It would be less palatable, I think, if you didn't see that both teams are having a lot of early season success. Right. They're having up years. And I think that possibly having played just a week prior could bring something extra to that matchup if it turns out to be a pretty good battle between them. So, it is what it is. I think there's a lot of positive ways to look at that one too.
And then at 7:30 at the T-Town Gym, we have Luther North out of St. Louis against Attaboys. So that's the T-Town side of the bracket. Now switching over to the Effingham side, our first game, 3 o'clock, Mattoon, St. Thomas More. Going to be another good ball game there. St. Thomas More got off to a big start this year. Won a Thanksgiving tournament, won their first 5. I think they've lost their last 3 since. Originally, I thought they were scheduled to play Tuscola, but it didn't on Saturday, but Tuscola played Fisher. So I'm not sure what all the deal was there, but I may have to look into that a little bit. 4:30 Oak Lawn versus Horizon Southwest. Horizon is the team we have coming in with everything happened to Corliss. You know, Corliss's coach getting sideways with administration, and then their kids just all transferred. I mean, I was told they were literally drafting, signing up kids in the lunchroom to fill out their team. I saw they played their first game of the year this week. I forget who they played. It was Friday night, played some, I mean, because they're in the good public league division based on how they played in the past, and got beat by 60 right out of the chute. Like, it was like 83-23 or something. So, you know, we made the change. Horizon came in, so they're here. 6 o'clock game, Chicago Brooks and Belvedere. And then at 7:30, we've got Dixon and Effingham. So what I will say, if you want to see some really, really, really good early tournament games, we've got to, you know, day one, again, you don't know because, you know, like I said, we've only seen a handful of these teams in person. We rely heavily, but not just on your record, you know, who you've played. For example, Lincoln Way East bulked up their schedule significantly. They've played 3 state-ranked teams so far this year, and then 2 of their top 4 kids transferred before the season, you know, in that little window there from the start, you know, right around the start of school. So they still have 2 real, I mean, they have a kid that's George Bellevue who's you're going to want to come watch play. But yeah, so, you know, record-wise, they don't have the most prestigious record, but we've got some tremendous second-round games in this tournament. We really do. There's, I mean, it's going to be worth the price of admission. Either way you go, winner's side, loser's side, I think every second-round game is going to be worth the price of a ticket and a bag of popcorn, because there's some games there. What's that?
We'll be holding you to that.
I will be shocked. I really will. We talked as a committee. If this isn't, we feel top to bottom, this will be our most competitive tournament. You know, our goal is to hardly ever have blowouts. But I mean, the potential of some things moving forward on how teams do, you're gonna have some ball games. I mean, some really good ball games going either direction. You know, many times a coach will come into a tournament like this and their goal is to go 2-2. And I guarantee you got a lot of coaches today looking at this bracket saying, man, I think I would take 2-2, because I know 3 of my 4 games, I'm going to really get tested, if not all 4.
Which is the underlying goal, of course. Anyone who enters a tournament is that they're wanting to see quality competition, and they're wanting to get those 4 games in 3 days, right? I mean, that's the appeal here, is that they're being tested, and they're, you know, it's not one of those deals where you might be 2 and out.
Right. And our goal as a tournament all along, I mean, our slogan was, you got to pack your lunch. You know, that's, you come to this tournament, you better pack a lunch, because for you to win this tournament, we want you to really be tested. And I think that's held true all along. You know, I go back, Whitey, 2019, Central A&M came in, just loaded, darlings of the Central Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
Finished sixth.
Yeah.
And I know there was some A&M fans grumbling and didn't like some things, and well, that Lincoln Way East, they were getting away with pushing us around and getting all these offensive rebounds. And I said, kind of like you do to teams that you play. well, no, that's not,
Well,
so
yeah,
when they can physically impose their will on people on their schedule, which they had done, some teams, and now here was a big physical team kind of doing that to them. And then that 5th and 6th place game that year, we had Pleasant Plains, who made it to a super sectional against A&M that made it to state. I mean, what more do you want in a tournament? And that was your 5th place game.
that does bring about an interesting point, is that when you bring in schools from all across the state, uh, game style of play changes from region to region.
Oh,
And,
yes.
and that's another reason why it's a good tournament to get into, is because you get to state, or get into a super sectional. You don't want it to be the first time you've played a team that maybe plays a particular style of basketball, or don't want to be the first time that you've played in a game that's officiated in a certain way. It's nice to have something.
St. Anthony will not face a quicker team all season than Champaign Centennial. Okay. And you can say, wow, that's, I gotta, you gotta face this, or, I know from talking to Troy, he's got a group of kids, when they decided to get into this tournament, they're going to be pretty decent. They want to be tested. They're going to get tested.
Yeah.
And that's what you want to do. I saw interviews with the Pleasant Plains kids the year they went to state after they won the soup, or when they won the sectional. Hey, what changed for you guys? You were off to a slow start. They had some injuries, but they said Christmas tournament, we came together. A&M kids said the same thing. Chicago Corliss, when they were here, Harvey said, my kids love coming down state. We see a different style of play, but we know we're going to get pushed every game. And that's the thing we try to provide. I guess the reason the tournament started really was so you don't have to travel an hour and a half over Christmas to go see a game.
Yep.
Secondly, you got, hey, you got a bunch of family home for Christmas. Hey, you want to go out and watch Effingham play tonight? Well, I don't want to drive to Pinckneyville to watch them. Well, they're here at home, and we can go see St. Anthony, or, we can see T-Town, or, hey, this team from Lincoln Way has got this kid that's really good. Hey, Oaklawn's got a kid who's going to Duquesne to play. We maybe go watch. There's a lot of that. I mean, it's a good tournament. We got good groups. Hey, remember when George Montgomery played for Illinois? Come watch him coach.
Yeah.
But it's fun, and it's local. And I can't say enough about, 2 things make the tournament go. Steve Raymond's got an article coming out about the tournament. Our corporate sponsors, we can't do this without them the way we do it. We pay every team that comes to the tournament $1,000. We pay for their hotels. Our corporate sponsors are huge, very generous. And we picked up 7 new corporate sponsors this year, lost 1, picked up 7. And then the committee that we have that does this, the amount of time those poor people have to listen to me in a meeting. There's a lot of crosses they bear, but
I assume they get paid $1,000 each too, right?
They should. Well, other than a couple, there's a couple of them that I would be questioning paying them any, Mike McCollum, but no, it is. I mean, it's a group. The things I remember from this tournament are watching Jeff Hardy after a game at T-Town, convincing these kids from the Chicagoland area to try a pork burger because they don't have any idea what it is. They don't have pork burgers up there. And now these kids who come back after the second, who have been here sophomores or juniors, hey, I want one of those pork burgers. And it's hilarious because Jeff's just out there just selling them. Or to be in a hospitality room over at Effingham the last day and listen to George Montgomery tell stories. He points up there at that picture of Uwe. That's the guy that elbowed me in the forehead for 4 years. But the committee, we got guys that, there's a lot of time and effort, Chris Custer's in charge of our housing, I don't even know where teams are staying until he gives me a list. And that's a lot of time to pull that together. And here's the prices we're getting. And, all of my committee people, I mean, I guess myself, obviously Dave Waltman, Thompson, the two athletic directors, my daughter Morgan, who we tease, it's her job to keep us all on track. She kind of does okay, but it's like herding cats if you're going to keep us on track. Jeff Hardick, Mitch Custer, Jason Rundy, Chris Ceruzin, Scott and Kent Nieberge on the T-Town side, FEM side, Chris Custer, Chris Craik, Mike McCullum, Manny Way, Steve Boswell, Keith Hartman. I think that's everybody. If I leave somebody out, I'll get in a lot of trouble, but I think that may be everybody on the committee. But a lot of time, a lot of effort, hospitality room. Dana Custer kind of runs the FEM side. Cindy Hardy runs the T-Town side. And I'll tell you what, those coaches appreciate it. Hey, it's not only, a Nemergs or a Buffalo Wild Wings or McMahon Meats or the Country Kitchen that step up and give us stuff, but hey, here's a little dip and crackers out of the Lilyville cookbook that you're like, this is, this coach is like, can I just eat this dip with a spoon? And you as media, Whitey, you've been in those hospitality rooms. You don't know how.
Once or twice.
Yeah, once or twice. I think Sapla would like to broadcast games from the hospitality. It's just stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of work and a lot of effort that goes into it. There really is. And coaches want to be here. I give a shout out to my wife and some of the other wives of committee members. We do the laundry for all these teams.
Mm-hmm.
That first game at T-Town, Pleasant Plains, Lincoln Way East, that game's over. Ann Wilson's barking at our committee members, where's my uniforms? And then her and, Cindy Hardick, Marcia Nieberge, Meg Custer, bang, they're taking them off. They're washing them. They string up clotheslines in a maintenance room to hang dry stuff. As a coach, you're not saying, okay, where's the laundry, man? I got to go wash uniforms so we can wear these tomorrow. No. You show up the next day, you walk in the locker room, there's your uniforms folded neatly on the bench. Now, years ago, we had to buy new uniforms for Al Raby. A shirt with red ink got into the home uniforms and a lot of pink splotches. We won't throw Rich Prupst under the bus for that, but, we had to buy uniforms one year. And the coach said, hey, we got pink all over these. I said, Coach, nothing we can do right now, but you go home, find out what you need. You send me an invoice, we'll buy your new uniforms. And we did,
So that's the Tuesday after Christmas, the 28th, Effingham High School, Teutopolis High School. You go to either one of those places, there's going to be games going on all day.
Right.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Wednesday's the day. I mean, Wednesday's the day everybody plays twice, correct? And so
correct. Wednesday's the day. And another thing we do, we have our teams that are in our hotels, and then the three, our three here, and then that still leaves us 5 teams. We offer them a host family to go to and spend that downtime on Wednesday. Jeff and Jennifer Taylor and Tony and Ellen Hain are 2 of our hosts. The other teams didn't want them. 2 of the coaches I don't think know what they've turned down, but okay, well, we're going to feed our teams at, we'll go to Buffalo Wild Wings and eat. We'll sit in there for an hour and a half, and then we'll come back and sit in the gym for an hour and a half or 2 hours. Hey, or you can sit in someone's house and eat snacks and your kids play PS4 for a couple hours or nap. The host families are huge. We've done it ourselves several years. So just things like that people don't realize, all the things that go into this tournament.
Well, I'm glad you're doing it. It's fun for us to, as broadcasters, to get a chance to cover hectic times, but lots of good games. It's always been a really solid tournament. So looking forward to it again this year.
Whitey, I have a Christmas tournament tease I want to throw out there.
Okay.
and I'm just throwing one word for now, just throwing a one-word tease: expansion.
Mhm. Mhm.
Well, that's people can take that for what it's worth.
We talked a little bit about this before we came on. I'm not going to divulge what you might be
Yeah,
getting at here, but
I was
I will
told if I
say,
mentioned it to you, I'd have to kill you.
I will say that if that comes to pass, then very very exciting news. So we'll hope that that continues to pan out and work out. Some things left to happen, but yeah, be on the lookout for that. And if when that happens, when and if that happens, you're gonna probably hear it here about as early as anywhere, because we got the inside source. But with that said,
Oh,
Mike,
and one other thing, our guests, probably the next 2 weeks worth of guests, we will be pulling in coaches from the Christmas tournament. I don't know that we can get them all in. We'll probably over the next 2 weeks pull in 8 to 10 coaches and do the old Brady Bunch Zoom call like we've done a couple times. That's worked well.
okay.
So I've talked to enough of them who are on board. So we'll get that taken care of in the next couple of weeks.
All right, so let's finish up our show. One more piece of business to take care of, and that's we're going to do a couple Attaboys this week. It was hard to decide between the two. I think we both came in with people we wanted to make sure we mentioned. So we're gonna
deserving, and we both agree on that. And we thought,
yes.
well, we may have a lull, so we'd rather give 2 now than come out and say, oh yeah, oh by the way, hey, here's one you kind of earned a couple of weeks ago, but we'll give to you now.
Yep. So with that said, and again, we should thank Joe's Pizza and Pizza Man every week for doing this. They're alternating each week that we're giving this out, but we'll do one each this time around. Yeah, to me, our first one, I don't think I couldn't let Grace Nelson's 50-point performance against St. Anthony go by. Again, she's having the kind of season where I think every week you could kind of look at what she's done and just say, yeah, there's an easy choice, because she's scoring 32 points a game. Even taking out that 50-point performance, well, she hadn't scored fewer than 22 in a game all season long. So I think Grace Nelson, 50 points against St. Anthony. Yes, Altamont did not win the game, but quite a performance, and we're going to hear of a lot more great games from her in the future. But Grace Nelson, this is for you. And
there you go. You're getting better.
Well, I hope so. And then we talked about T-Town's game against Bloomington Central Catholic, Mike, and there was one performance in there that I know you felt especially strongly about. So I'll kind of let you take the reins here.
Yeah. And as much as anything, I think early in the Thanksgiving tournament, this young man struggled a little bit at times, getting in the flow of the game, trying to force things. And I felt like, here was a big game. Guys hurt. Somebody's got to step up. All of you have to step up, really. But I thought Max Nieberg, he just showed leadership. I'm pretty sure he was the only kid who was on the floor all 32 minutes for St. Anthony or for Teutopolis. I'm pretty sure. I don't remember him setting out. Was having to guard Bloomington's good shooter part of the time. They kept rotating back and forth. Mm-hmm. Actually, I think it was maybe one of the Altos or both of the Altos really probably were the best matchup because of their length. But they all had shots at him. But the way he kind of stepped up and rose, and then in the fourth quarter, just kept going to the line making free throws. I actually was standing on the floor down near the Bloomington JV kids were setting, and I kept saying, you can't foul that kid. That's the one kid you don't want to send to the line because he's not going to miss. And so for that, I'm going to, I think for his leadership role in a big game and when a time when it was badly needed, my attaboy is going to go out to Max Nieberg.
So you get to hear your clip twice in a week. That's the real reason we did this.
Well, yeah, it's anytime you can, you're going back to that Don Knotts movie, Ghost and Mr. Chicken. It's always a good day.
Well, your mileage may vary on that one. I can't say much. I haven't actually seen it, but we'll leave it at that. Congratulations to both of them, Grace Nelson of Altamont, Max Nieberge of Teutopolis. Each of them going to get a little gift card from either Joe's Pizza or Pizza Man. We thank them for being a part of this and giving us a little something to make it worth these kids' while. Because I think if we just told them that they got recognized on some podcast, I don't know how excited they would be. I think they would still be appreciative, but you give a little gift along with it, and it starts becoming real.
There may be tears in Max Nieberge's eyes when I give him that gift card.
Well,
just saying.
You say that same kind of thing every week, and I'm
going
to put aside
the guy's tears were like, is there a restraining order? I know this guy, but why is he here? Brendan was like, I said, hey, you're getting an attaboy we give an attaboy every week on our podcast. And he was like, he didn't say what podcast, but we may have picked up a new listener because
I hope so.
He was raised on Pizza Man Pizza as a little kid.
Well, and again, last week with Uwe, we had really good numbers. And I hope that we continue to get some traction. So, if you're hearing this, feel free to give us a subscription on our YouTube channel. It doesn't cost you anything.
60 subscribers now.
Yeah, 60. We keep rising a little bit every week. It's modest success, but we'll take it.
Baby steps.
Baby steps is exactly right. So we appreciate anybody who's hearing this. We appreciate it if you tell your friends about it, share it on your social media platform of choice. We're going to work on creating a Twitter account, I guess, to maybe strengthen our social media foothold a little bit more. But
somebody's asked about if we have swag, Whitey and Wils t-shirts.
Now we'll have to.
That's a friend of mine from California, and he may be borderline homeless, just wanting more clothing. I don't know.
Well, I mean, if anyone's getting it for free, it's going to be the Attaboy winner.
Yeah, exactly.
But we'll have to work on a funding arm for that sort of thing. That may be a little ways down the road. Probably have to find somebody to make a little better logo for us too.
We may have since Larry Wilson's letting us, let me use his kitchen here during Wi-Fi struggles. Maybe he can fund some t-shirts. You think? Yeah. I doubt it.
That is completely your idea. I didn't have.
He's shaking his head right now. No. I can't tell which direction he's shaking his
head. He's just shaking with rage.
He's just shaking. Yeah.
All right. So that'll do it for this week. We'll have more local basketball talk about next week. Hopefully some coaches from the upcoming Christmas Classic to talk.
Yes, we will have them on.
We will have them on. So you've got that to look forward to. Thanks for listening, everybody. Mike, have a good week, and
you too.
down the road. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.